If driftomorphasis tracks how formations move, synestheriasis names the internal pressure condition that makes those movements intelligible. Both concepts work as descriptive refinements. They sharpen the precision of what we can track in systems that must maintain themselves in order to remain operative. This is the conceptual architecture. The next half of the talk shows it operating in two concrete sites, a television series and a cruise ship. Futureman is a Hulu original that ran from 2017 to 2020. It is also no longer available on Hulu. The show was dropped following the Disney acquisition. Season 3 is rentable on Amazon. Seasons 1 and 2 have no stable authorized home. Viewing all 3 seasons required locating them on an unlicensed streaming site whose technical infrastructure operates, predictably, at the margins of reliability. Constant buffering, unexpected restarts, a persistent desync between voice and subtitle that makes the dialogue arrive in 2 incompatible streams at once. A show about recursive timeline collapse, about worlds that terminate and reconstitute under degraded conditions, about the gap between what a system promises and what its actual infrastructure delivers, is itself only accessible through an experience of that very structure. Flusser's non-thing infrastructure becomes visible exactly when it fails. The corporate decisions that scattered the show across incompatible distribution systems, the lag that separates voice from meaning, the restarts that interrupt continuity. These are the metastable maintenance work becoming perceptible. The stable viewing experience was always a managed effect. Now the management has lapsed. The premise of the show encodes the problem. Josh Futterman, a janitor who spends his off hours playing a near-impossible video game called Biotic Wars, discovers that the game is a training simulation broadcast from the future. Completing it has enrolled him in a war for the survival of humanity. The game is 2 paradigms at once. For the future soldiers, it is elite military training, a paradigm-governed practice with disciplinary authority. For Josh, it is escapism, a retreat from a life whose conditions cannot be otherwise organized. Same object, different worlds, incommensurable. The series then literalizes Kuhn's incommensurability across timelines. Each timeline intervention generates new conditions. The original disparity does not resolve. The threads do not merge. They multiply. Josh's recurring question, "I'm still the janitor?" is the show's most compressed statement of the condition. Across timeline collapses, reset histories, radically altered worlds, the question resurfaces. What persists across timelines is the pre-individual residue, the accumulated social tensions that assign certain kinds of labor to certain kinds of people regardless of timeline. Those tensions keep operating beneath the surface of each new configuration. Identity here is phase-bound trajectory. Memory operates as structural remainder, carrying the trace of prior configurations into the new one without synthesizing them into a unified self. The temporal architecture of the show enacts this at the level of form. Each season resets the world while retaining the accumulated force of prior interventions. What looks like chaos, the accelerating, always slightly broken quality of the narrative, resolves into pattern transformation. Worlds continue because their tensions remain operative. In Futureman, this is literal. The war that drives the narrative is sustained by the very interventions that attempt to end it. Each resolution generates the conditions for the next crisis. Stability is always retrospective. It becomes recognizable only once a new configuration is formed. Futureman runs metastability fast enough that the seams show. The cruise ship runs it under conditions of total composure, where the seams are the entire achievement of the design. A waiter in the dining room remembers a passenger's name. He remembers their preference for olive oil and vinegar instead of butter. The interaction feels personal. The passenger feels seen, cared for, recognized as an individual within a system designed to process thousands. Then the same person appears on another deck, performing a different function. Then again on another. The question forms, does he ever get time off? He smiles. He does not answer. The silence is more informative than any response could be. What had registered as warmth becomes visible as labor. The fieldwork record qualifies. The labor is genuinely warm. It is also genuinely labor. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The passenger stops feeling grateful and starts feeling responsible. The system is operating exactly as designed. That is the more unsettling observation. The cruise ship presents stability as a service, a world suspended from ordinary contingency, maintained at controlled temperature, continuous availability, the managed disappearance of friction. What the ship's infrastructure actually is, beneath the surface, is closer to what Prigogine calls a dissipative structure, a system maintained far from equilibrium through the continuous expenditure of energy. Coherence depends on the rate at which disturbance is processed and redistributed. Disturbance never goes away. The ship just keeps catching up to it. The ship holds together because it never stops working to hold together. Stability is the output of a process. The waiter's smile is part of that process. At the entrances to the dining areas, crew members chant "washi washi" at the hand sanitizer stations. The chant is rhythmic, repeated, performed on schedule. Its function is hygiene infrastructure. Its form is something closer to what Simondon calls transductive propagation, a structuring event that moves through a domain by conditioning each encounter with the next. Every passenger who passes through is incorporated into the loop. The chant is a paradigm in miniature, a shared practice transmitted through trained participation in a recurring exemplary event. It also carries the residue of pandemic infrastructure, the ghost of a health emergency that the ritual now reads as hospitality. Flusser's distinction between things and non-things is the key here. The thing world the ship's surface presents, the handrails, the dishes, the choreographed routes through corridors, is organized for graspability, for the reassurance of persistent material form. The ship's actual operation runs on non-things, scheduling systems, environmental controls, maintenance protocols, labor distributed across bodies moving between decks. The passenger navigates a thing world whose coherence is produced by non-thing infrastructure. When the non-thing infrastructure becomes briefly visible, through the question about time off, through the reappearance of the same worker in a different role, the thing world's stability is exposed as the managed effect it always was. The ship is metastable. Its tensions remain in circulation, economic, technical, social, informational, regulated, never eliminated. That is what working systems look like from inside. We have moved through 4 registers: ontological individuation in Simondon, epistemic reorganization in Kuhn, narrative temporal recursion in Futureman, material infrastructure on the ship. These 4 registers all instantiate the same operative logic under different constraints. What they share is a common demand. Persistence requires the retention of tension. A system that fully resolves its internal disparities exhausts its generative capacity. Continuity depends on preserved difference. Stability, when it appears, is an effect produced by the coordination of forces that remain active. It is a maintenance achievement. It can always fail, a stuttering special effect. Driftomorphesis is the method adequate to this condition. It attends to trajectories. It follows how structuration propagates under shifting constraints, holding domains together without collapsing them into one another. Synestheresis names the internal pressure condition that makes transformation intelligible. The co-presence of heterogeneous tensions within a field whose simultaneous activity generates the conditions for phase transition. Co-loaded pressure. Productive non-synthesis. These concepts work as descriptive refinements. They sharpen the precision of what we can track in systems that must maintain themselves in order to remain operative. Flusser's etymology returns here with full weight. The German Unding, literally a non-thing or unthing, carrying the sense of absurdity, of what goes against common sense, of what the available frameworks insist cannot be. Metastability is structurally Unding-like. It is the condition that stable state ontologies register as paradox or mistake, the name for what the system cannot account for from within the stability it is already assuming. To inhabit a metastable field is to live in an unding, in something that the available frameworks insist should not be possible, and that continues anyway. The opening sentence returns with altered force. The world ends and keeps going anyway. Worlds end because their ending creates their continuation.
The world ends and keeps going anyway. That's the sentence they told us couldn't stay. Simondon says the field is always charged. Kuhn sees the paradigms growing large. A supersaturated solution in a glass, just waiting for a speck of dust to pass. Metastability is the name of the game, a death-effacing process we just fail to name. All stability is a stuttering special effect, a maintained condition that we have to inspect. It's driftomorphasis, it's sinister eyes too. It's the simultaneous pressure that's holding me and you. And now look at the cruise ship, polished and bright, maintenance labor hidden out of sight. A dissociative structure, far from the end. The waiter's warm smile is a pressure we spend. Flusser says the thing world is graspable and clear, but the non-thing infrastructure is what's operating here. Just watch the same worker on another deck appear, asking washy-washy while we're drifting through the year. I'm still the janitor, Josh asked the screen, Josh asked the screen. Buffering and desync, the dialogue arrives late. The stable viewing experience and a restitute, a phase shift in a suit. Is it streaming, is it streaming, is it real, is it mute? Is it mute, is it mute? The world ends and keeps going anyway. Metastability is here to stay. Thank you. Thank you.